Well, we've all seen it and we've all experienced. Hell, it's probably gave birth. Well, let's not say probably. It did give birth to the AutoLooks website. Bad designs. As our original tagline said, protecting consumers from bad designs. That's what AutoLooks stand for in the beginning. And that's why we were there. We're trying to protect you, the consumer, from bad designs from ever getting out. We literally wanted these companies to take accountability for the crap they were literally trying to shove down our throats. But why? Why did they get made? Why do we have these bad cars? There's a good answer to that, and you really have to take a look at history to find out about it. So today, AutoLooks is going to be taking a look at bad automotive designs. Welcome back to the AutoLooks podcast. I am your host, as always, the doctor to the automotive industry, Mr. Everett J, coming to you from our host website at autolooks.net. If you haven't been there, stop by, check it out, read some of the reviews, check out some of the ratings, go to the Corporate Links website page. Big or small, we have them all. Car companies from around the globe, all available in one direct location, the autolooks.net website. The AutoLooks podcast is brought to you by Ecom Entertainment Group and distributed by podbeam.com. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send us an email over to email@autolooks.net. So like I said in the beginning, bad designs. We've all seen tons of bad designs. Think about it. Throughout history, how many bad designs can you think of right off the top of your head? Hell, one car company comes to mind most famously for two horrible designs built off two completely different platforms while going after the exact same market at the same time. You think they would have done the same platform, but they were kind of stupid at the time. Essentially, what killed this car company, and we did do a podcast about them, American Motors. Yes, the AMC Gremlin and Pacer, but ugly, boring cars. And at the end of their life, the AMC Eagle came back. Bad designs. How did vehicles like this make it into production? Hell, if you take a look at it, the Eagle Camback and the AMC Gremlin, essentially the Camback is just the rebirth of the Gremlin. Same style, just with all-wheel drive abilities. So how do vehicles like this get made? They're horrible. Who really thinks they're a great idea? Like the Pontiac Aztec. If it wasn't for the show Breaking Bad, that's a car we would have forgotten about for history. Think about it. How many people listening right now can remember the 1999 Isuzu Via-Cross and how that was such a weird and outlandish design? Some people may think it's kind of cool, kind of like the PT Cruiser, but then most of us will look at it as a horrible design. Way too much plastic body cladding, short for what its main purpose is. If you were going to make a two-door off-road vehicle, why make it look more like a sports car? It was kind of an early iteration of Crosstrek or active sports car market. We did a podcast about that if you want to listen to it. Active sports cars, pretty cool. You learn a little bit about them. But we don't remember it because it didn't exist for very long. Hell, by the time it came out, it was just before Isuzu would pull the plug on automobile sales in North America. They no longer sell their truck and their SUV here. They still sell their big full-size cube trucks, but that's because we all know Isuzu builds indestructible motors, just like Suzuki. Fortunately, Suzuki's only here in outboard motors and motorcycles, and a few others, but those are the two biggest. But these bad designs, they get through. And how do we get through? Well, in all sense, all vehicles go through a planning stage where they find out what people need. Our episode we did about the Homer kind of explains this. They gave Homer all the rights to make whatever vehicle he wanted because he was the average person. Now, the average person on the market, and I'm sorry to say to all my listeners right now, really doesn't know what they want. We all think we know what we want. Trust me, even for myself, when I used to be an automotive designer back in the day, I would create designs of one context, then go to another context. It wasn't a lot of similarities between a lot of my different designs. So I really didn't know what I wanted. When I built my own car company, never really got off paper, but when I built it and started building a lineup for it, a lot of my vehicles started looking similar to each other. But I found a more stable design for it. So for myself, just go through it with Powell Motors and The Simpsons. We're just going to utilize that one for an explanation about how bad designs really get made. Because think about it. The Homer has everything anybody would really want for their vehicle. But it also does not look like anything anybody in the real world would want to drive. It has a separate space dome with an onboard video game system to keep the kids entertained so they don't bother the parents while they're driving. that has a little ball on the top of your antenna so you could find your vehicle anywhere. Well, if everyone had those, it would just blend in, right? Unless we all did different ones. It had a big, powerful motor, had everything that we thought we wanted. But so did the Pontiac Aztec. When you look at the design of the Pontiac Aztec, you ask yourself, how the hell did that ever get made? If you actually go to the AutoLooks.net website, you go to the About or Help pages, you'll find more stuff about me on the About page. You go to my personal page that has all my old designs on it. Now, I did a custom design job where I took the front end of a Pontiac Vibe and put it on the front end of a Pontiac Aztec. Made the thing look like way better. Kind of like the Rendezvous. The Rendezvous was still pretty bad, but not as bad as the Aztec. But the Aztec had what consumers wanted. They wanted that rough and tumble all-wheel drive system in a vehicle that can go anywhere they really want to, soft-roading. It had a removable cooler. It had an attachable tent to the back, so you could literally just drive away from your tent in the morning. It was made for the outdoor person. Essentially what the Honda Element was as well. But the Honda Element was a horrible design to begin with as well. It was a giant cube, but the concept behind it was amazing. Like the Aztec, when you start diving deep into the technology and everything that's in the package, what consumers were demanding at that time, we were starting to move out of the minivan market and into the CUV market. But a lot of people didn't want to get into the CUV market because they didn't want these big, boxy off-road vehicles. We wanted something more soft-roader. So Pontiac answered that by blending a minivan and a CUV together in more of a car footprint. They needed a new model, and they wanted to gain entry to a brand new market, and they wanted to do it quickly. Unfortunately, when it came to the end, when you had to fit all of these pieces together, and you got all of the technology right, the project is nearing the time it needs to be released. And on a last-minute ditch, you got to create a design for this thing. You got to cover the package. You can't just have a steel shell with amazing technology out driving around on the streets. You got to create a shell around it. So Pontiac literally just threw what they thought would be a reasonable shell. Hell, the people like the Vibe and the people like the plastic body cladding on the Grand Am at that point in time. And we got to give it this somewhat sport appeal, but we also need the massive plastic body cladding because that's a big GM thing in the early 2000s. Just look at the Chevy Avalanche. You'll understand what I'm talking about. They wanted that. But by adding the plastic body cladding, it gives it that more soft roader appeal. Right? Even though the design was horrible, it still looked like a Pontiac because it had the Pontiac grille. It had the Pontiac headlights. And it had a Pontiac appeal to it. So where were the board members to say no? It had everything customers were demanding in vehicles except the design. But when they looked at the design, they said, yeah, it looks pretty good. We think people will buy it. And they make it into production because they have a deadline to meet. Same way that the Fiat Multipla made it out to the market. It gave people the extra safety features, running lights that ride higher so you could see more, especially in tall and old cities. Gotta remember, the Fiat Multipla is from Italy. You gotta get down these narrow streets. You gotta be able to see everything around. Well, the Multipla lifted the fog lights up. Unfortunately, it just made the thing look butt ugly. The Toyota Previa was just like the old Chevy Lumina and Pontiac Transport van. They wanted to maximize space in a minivan while getting lower fuel economy and giving you a wider angle of vision. If you notice today, one of the most hated things you'll find on vehicles today are flat windshields. Nobody curves a windshield anymore. But that pretty much has to do with your LiDAR system and your autonomous technology. You can't have the curve because they haven't developed all of that yet to work with the system. So we're just literally putting flat windshields back on vehicles. But back in the 90s, we were able to curve them. And they created these giant bubble fronts. Now, I had a friend, his mom had one of those Chevy Lumina vans, used to get rides to school and ride home after school. And if you put something on the dash, kiss it goodbye because it would literally roll all the way to the front and disappear from you forever. Unless you got like 4-foot-long arms, you ain't getting that damn thing off the dash. Sure, it brought down your coefficient of drag, which means those vehicles got way better gas mileage than the Caravans that were out at that point in time. The Caravan already owned the market, so everybody else was just trying to find their niche in the market to get these things around. They gave people what they wanted. Not something good to look at. And like I said at the beginning of this, you got to look back through history. Fiat entered the automotive marketplace. And if you go back to the Fiat 600, held even the Fiat 500, were tiny gelatinous blob vehicles. But the 600 Multipla maximized space in a small package. It utilized every square inch without making an actual drivable brick. It maximized the space. It gave people what they needed. Tons of space in a small package at a low price. It just did it in a bad looking way. And then you get into Ford. Ford's greatest foible in history, the Edsel. A vehicle that was brought up to be so amazing and so revolutionary. It was going to change the world. It had everything the market wanted, except looks. Really, in all sense, everything except look. That, again, is because they rushed it to meet the deadline. Last-minute designs they couldn't clean up. The issues that they saw, they just literally had to go with it and get it out to the market. But then there lies another question. When they get these horrible designs out to the market, why do they stick around for so long? Like the Gremlins, the Chevy Citations, the Aztecs, the PT Cruisers, hell, the second-generation Honda Pilots, and even the Fiat Multiplas. Hell, today, one of the easiest ones is the Cybertrucks. Why do these vehicles stick around for so long? There's still people that buy them, and they buy them based off of what the original vehicle was intended for. You have to remember, everybody always looks at a baby, and not everybody will say it's a beautiful baby. They say, you got looks only a mother can love, or father. Let's just say it in a whole generalized context. You got looks only a parent can love, okay? That's what these vehicles have. It's essentially like calling somebody ugly on the outside, but gorgeous on the inside. That's what these vehicles are. They're an ugly duckling on the exterior, but they're one of the most beautiful things on the inside. And when people find out about them on the inside, they realize how great these products were. The Gremlin fit a lot of stuff into a small package and didn't utilize tons of gas. Hell, they had V8 models too. Kind of weird, but they did exist. Hell, they had the special Levi's edition, which one of my dad's good friends had. The Pacer, a giant, as they call it, the fishbowl on wheels. Well, fishbowls are really big, which means if you watch the movie Wayne's World, you understand how five adults, fit comfortably into that small, tiny little hatchback. Remember, that was a compact vehicle back then, even though it's about the same size as a mid-size compact is today. It did its part, and it fit the market it went for. Honda had a foible like this. Actually, they had about 3 of them just in the past 20 years. Actually, yeah, past 20 years. The Acura ZDX, the Honda Element, the Ridgeline, and the second-generation Pilot. We're also going to throw in the 2012 Honda Odyssey as well. They had this whole period right around 2010 to 2012 that they had these horrible, horrible designs. They put a barbecue heating element as the grill for a Honda Ridgeline on a vehicle that was just downright boring. Hell, even the first-generation Pilots ran off the same platform as Ridgeline. They were bland, they were boring. Honda wanted to get a pickup truck out to the marketplace. But when people started realizing the back seats folded up perfectly, there's this tool storage underneath the back bench. The tailgate doesn't just drop down. It has a hinge on it, like a back door, like a CUV. You can put stuff underneath the bed. Or if you want to go tailgating, you throw ice in there and throw some pop or beer, whatever you fancy. It had all of these amazing things for its market. And like we said, it's like the ugly duckling that's beautiful inside. The technology and everything that went into making this vehicle was planned perfectly until the design. The ZDX was like that, same with the Honda Accord Cross Tour. Early to the market of active lifestyle vehicles, they saw a change coming as people were starting to back away from the crossover utility marketplace and starting to move into more sport-inspired vehicles. The coupe profile CUVs, like the Mercedes GLC class, it was a coupe profile. The CLS kind of brought that out with sedans, but the GLC was bringing it out in CUVs. The ZDX and the Honda and the Accord Cross Tour showed this market in its infancy. The ZDX, not a lot of people liked, and people hated the low headroom in the back seats. That was something, technology-wise, they needed to get a grasp on. The Accord Cross Tour gave you everything that you loved about your Honda Accord, just lifted. It was cool, it was good, and it made entry and exit easier. The Element was built for your urban dweller who loves to explore the world. You could sleep inside of it. and you could put your bikes in it right after going mountain biking covered in mud because the back of it, you can hose it down. The Odysseys later on, kind of like Chrysler, had vacuums built into them because they know that parents deal with kids throwing food all over the place and you need to vacuum this shit up. So they added a vacuum to it. A great add-on to a great vehicle. But something like the Caravan, still bland and boring. It was a giant blob in the 90s and the early 2000s. It was a square cube in the 80s, early 90s, and now into the teen and 20 years. But it held the market. The Odyssey tried to change that market with bland and boring. And hell, I did one of my first AutoLooks online videos about the Honda Odyssey, and God, the amount of people bad-mouthing me because I called it the ugly duckling really didn't understand how I was saying that it's got great Honda build quality, great features and technology behind it, but a horrid design. It's bland, it's boring. But and yet, at that point in time, Honda didn't care about design language. People bought their vehicles for quality build only. Toyota was like that back then too. So you got all of these bad designs. They're built for their market. They were priced for their market. And they had everything that people required in that market. Just everybody else who didn't like that form of marketplace didn't understand their designs. To this day, I understand the Pontiac Aztec. And after going to the Toronto Auto Show around the year it came out, going through it and seeing how it has a takeout cooler, how you can put a tent on it, easily washable, every single thing inside of it just screamed urban adventurer. It was the ultimate urban adventure vehicle. Had everything we wanted. Everything the market demanded, except a design acceptable by the marketplace. And we've seen this over time. Nissan tried to find a weird niche back in 2012 with the Murano Cross Cabriolet, a convertible two-door version of a Nissan Murano. They thought the CUV marketplace was ready for a convertible. Well, it would be not too long after that when the Evoque convertible and even the Volkswagen T-Roc Cabriolet came out. These were vehicles that saw that there was a marketplace for two-door crossover utility vehicles with a convertible top. The Murano did not have a design to pull this thing off. It was weird, really weird. How could they ever think a marketplace would love that? But you know what? People still bought it. People buy weird and bad designs because of price points, because they want to be different. Hell, I owned a Kia Borrego before, with less than 1,500 of them sold in Canada and less than 15,000 of them ever sold in the United States. I was on one of the rarest Kias out there. Essentially, I was one of the only Kia unicorns you could find either. Build quality was above par when it came to Kia products, but it was different, and that's what I liked about it. The Element was different. The Nissan Cube was different. The Myers Motors Duo was different. The Fiat 500L was different. All of these vehicles made a statement. Like we said, the Cybertruck. How does the Cybertruck come out when it literally looks like a doorstop? If anybody wants to try that, my son and I have actually been starting it, even though there's only like 2 Cybertrucks in our city, buying cheap doorstops at dollar stores. And anytime you see a Cybertruck, you put the doorstop on it. You know, just like the duck thing with Jeeps. We started doing this and we just thought it was kind of funny because they look like a doorstop. Let's give people a doorstop. They have a doorstop collection in the Cybertruck, and you can put the doorstop collection on your dash because it'll fit perfectly under the windshield. But something like that has a place in society. There are people that badmouth vehicles like the PT Cruiser and the Aztec, but love the Cybertruck. Even though the Cybertruck is one of the simplest automotive designs in history, it even has the most basic rim design of all time. Everything about it just screams a 2-year-old drew it. I made pickup trucks that look like that when I was a kid. Actually, the design for the Cybertruck looks more like when I used to design Lamborghini Countaches when I was younger, oddly enough. But yeah, those little blocky designs you do when you're little, that's what the Cybertruck looked like to me. But there are people out there who think it's cool, it's revolutionary, it's going to change the world. Unfortunately, these vehicles eventually die off because there's not enough of those people out there to see the true beauty of these vehicles. Chevrolet learned that with the Malibu Max. Ooh, the Malibu is the new ones from Opel, the second generation. No, it's from, not second generation, but the 2005 was from Opel. You know, it's kind of weird and odd. Let's make a hatchback out of it. And to try and keep things going, Chevrolet does what Chevrolet does best. They add a sport appeal package to it, the SS model. of the Malibu Max. Ooh, now it's a performance product. It's still weird but ugly. But a lot of other people have done that with their vehicles. Add aftermarket modifications, board appeal packages to try and make them look better. Honda eventually got rid of that stupid heating grill from a barbecue as its grill for the Honda Ridgeline and went with just a standard 3-bar grill. Then they got into the Beehive. Once they did the Beehive, it looked amazing. Funny thing is when the original Ridgeline came out, I did customized drawings back then. And I did one of the Ridgeline. And by just putting on a Beehive grill and dropping the thing down, I made it look amazing. There were ways to make it look better. Honda has the weird blocky designs that always look great, with just a little bit of modifications to them. You can think they're the worst car, and about less than $5,000 later, you can have the world's best looking car. I don't know. Them and Volkswagen know how to do this. It's part of the design language. They just know how to make something bland and boring look good in the aftermarket world. But as the market retracts on these, they eventually disappear. The PT Cruiser had a big enough retro market that they managed to go out through 2 design phases. As you've noticed, a lot of the vehicles I've talked about in this only lived through one design phase. The Honda Element, the PT Cruiser, one of the only 2 that made it across multiple ones. Hell, the Fiat Uno, one of those boring designs from Italy ever, has managed to make it a long time. We're talking decades. Mercedes A-Class has kicked around. Now, the A-Class design has completely changed, just like the GLC coupe models. So some of these live past one generation. But if they're not big enough and don't take enough of the market share out there to gain traction for the vehicle, they can't live past that first generation. And if they become a flop in sales, board members don't want to push through a second generation. The Aztec could have been so much more had they put a Pontiac Vibe front end on it, got rid of the plastic body cladding. If you look at Aztecs without all the plastic body cladding, they actually look a little bit better. They look more Pontiac inspired. Add a Vibe front end to it and fix up the back. You got to remember the back of the Aztec was very similar to the second design of the Toyota Prius with that broken window on the back. How the Mitsubishi Eclipse or ASX has the same thing as well. So there's parts of the design they could have kept, but other ones they need to change. A little less character on the side, a Vibe front end, bigger tires and wheels, because I knew somebody that actually drove one of these things and he said it feels like it's going to tip over every single time you turn a corner. It doesn't, but it feels that way. Different tires. There's so much that could have been done to make these vehicles last longer. Kind of like the Toyota Previa. It became the Sienna when they got rid of that giant aerodynamic weird-ass design from the early 90s. The Honda Pilot finally got away from its block toaster style, and that's a podcast we did about toaster cars. There's a lot of them out there, big blocky vehicles, and quite a few of them in the bad designs. The Element, the Cube, the Pilot, hell, even the Scion XB are all part of toaster cars. 2-box designs at their maximum. Some of them are just bad designs in the design era. The Nissan Quest, the last design we had in North America, was the worst one. I think the design literally killed the vehicle. But if you look at the vehicles like Nissans at that point in time, that's when they were getting into bed with Renault, and they started utilizing Renault designs. And if you've seen Renault designs in the late 90s and early 2000s, you really understand. They have a lot, and I do mean a lot, of bad designs. But unfortunately, they had a market that really didn't care. They just wanted to buy French cars in the French market. So they sold. Some of these are horrible designs, and they sell for quite a while. Like I said, the PT Cruiser, over a decade? The Aztec only lived a few years, but the PT lived on. Some of them come back. The Fiat Multipla, as we all thought, was a horrible design. Zote from China decided to bring back their own Multipla in 2012, 10 years later. And they really didn't do much to make it better. The actual headlights and hood formation were a little bit different, a little more modern, a little more streamlined compared to the original Multipla, but still wasn't that great. Now, if you want to talk about weird designs that have attempted to come out into the market and attempted to keep themselves from being destroyed in the market, I don't know if I'm going to get sued or, be served papers after this podcast comes out, but back in 2013, a plastic surgeon from California decided to create his own car called the Ubian Puma. Now, it's an early iteration of an active sports car. It kind of looks like an Eagle Talon that was stretched out, given some off-road tires, and then somebody just beat it in the face with a shovel. It's butt ugly and weird. It does serve a purpose. It was kind of cool in its concept, But design, somebody really shit the bed there. Of course, the guy was a plastic surgeon. I really would like to see some of his work to find out how he actually managed to make an Eagle Talon look like this thing, because I wouldn't trust him. If I found out it was him that made the car and he's about to do my nose job, sorry, I'm getting a new doctor. But this thing, it came out. Now, it was a specialty product. He only sold a very few amount of them and never became a big car company. So something like that explains itself with a bad design. It's the creator's design. That's what they loved. That's what they wanted to create. They wanted to see if there's a market. Even if there wasn't a market, they got the vehicle that they loved and always wanted. UBM Puma, he got what he wanted. That plastic surgeon got the car he always wanted. It was his dream. That's his dream. May not be everybody else's dream. We may badmouth it. A lot of other people may badmouth it, but he loved it. It's a face only a mother can love, and he did. Unlike the Fiat 500L Living. Oh, God, you take the 500 and stretch it back and up, out. And it's literally, you just stretched it, and that's not a design you could do that with. It looks worse. Hell, the 500 to begin with is not a car I really care about, but as a two-door little hatchback, it's a lot cooler than this crossover vehicle they created with the 500L Living. Besides that, gaining entry into markets is one of the biggest things. People try and break out in their own niches, and that's where a lot of these vehicles come from. They try and meet the market demand. They try and meet a brand, like break a new niche, or they're even just trying to break into the market. Something like Centro City Porter, Central Electric, builds the most bland, basic-looking commercial vans out there. But if they price them at such a low rate, people will just buy them. They won't care the designs, the most boring, bland things you've ever seen in your entire life. Even worse than the Cybertruck, or even a Mercedes-Benz EQS. Literally just a giant blob. They're bland, they're boring, and they got no substance. But these vehicles came out for a purpose, and they met that purpose, and they met that market, and people, very select few, liked them. Hell, some of them even fit into a marketplace that was just emerging and hung around just because they were one of the first ones, like the Gremlin and Pacer. The Citation had a place in history. The Corvair had a place in history. The 600 Multipla had a place in history. The Via-Cross, the Buddy Electric, little two-seater electric car, had a place in history. All of these vehicles gave us something that somebody wanted and somebody thought the world needed. At that point in time, it was the greatest project on paper. Even if the design didn't work, everything else about it would work for the marketplace. We're going to make some money off of it. It's not going to become a major dud, and we're not going to lose our shirts on it. Some of these companies did go belly up because they were too small to try and keep themselves into the marketplace that they were building. Mitsuoka keeps going out and creating weird vehicles like the Galio, the Vute, and the Homolka. Okay, they're weird-looking vehicles built off pre-existing platforms, but there's still a market that wants them, that likes them, that wants to see them. You're never going to stop all bad designs, because when we change all these bad designs, as we've noticed with the AutoLooks rating system at the end of the year, we've changed so many different designs out into the world that today our rating systems, all we're seeing is a C average for everyone. 50%. Yeah, 50% is the C average for us, okay? C average. It's becoming a bland, boring marketplace. We need some of these bad designs. Gives us something to talk about, gives you something to talk about, and gives the person who purchases it something to be proud about. Like I said, the UBM Puma made the creator proud that he got to own and create that own vehicle. I can't say that, but he can. Even though I badmouthed it for its design, he managed to build that. I didn't. And that's what we really have to start looking at. These may have been bad designs, but they fit a place in the market, and they had some purpose to being there. We don't just throw bad designs out there and hope they're going to make it. Well, we did at one point in time. In North America, we did it back in the early 20s. In China, well, it's happening right now. But a lot of other places in the world, we don't. Bad designs will keep happening throughout history. Maybe not so much now as people realize that we need to work on design just as much as technology. But as technology is becoming more condensed inside of our vehicles, we don't need as much space. So we can make the most beautiful design and put all the amazing technology within it. We've gotten to a point where we can design the shell of a car and design what's inside of it instead of designing what's inside of it and then designing the shell. So bad designs, they're here. They're going to stick around, and we're going to keep talking about them. So will you ever kill them? No, because somebody, somewhere, is going to say, this is a good idea. So if you like this podcast, please like, share, or comment about it on any major social feeds or streaming sites that you found the AutoLooks podcast on. Like us, share us, comment about us, send us to your friends, your family, your well-wishers, girlfriend, boyfriend, or anything like that. Send it out. Ask them about all these bad designs. Do you think, they like the bad design vehicle? What do they love about it? And tell us what they love about some of these bad designs. Send us a picture of their crappy vehicle that you think is the most horrible design in history. And tell us what they love about it and what they really care about that bad design. Like I said, send it on your social feeds. Wherever you found the AutoLooks podcast, on any of the social feeds, streaming sites, or even the website. Send us your comments, your input, emails. You know where to send it. If you got questions or you want something answered, send an email over to email@autolooks.net. The AutoLooks podcast is brought to you by Ecom Entertainment Group and distributed by podbeam.com. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send us an email over to email@autolooks.net. So after that, stop by the website, read some reviews, check out some of the ratings, go to the Corporate Links website page, big or small, we got them all available on the autolooks.net website. And if we don't have them, let us know what your most hated car of history. Hell, go and check out our Corporate Links website page. We got pictures from all these small little car companies, some of them that are horribly, horribly bad that you would never think, why would somebody make that? It's all available right there for you at the autolooks.net website. So for myself, Everett J, podbeam.com, Ecom Entertainment Group, and the AutoLooks website, strap yourself in for this one fun ride that these bad designs are going to take us on.